Okay, the last bit of the video on inequality and poverty. So we've talked mostly we got the long run picture in the background, including the capital investment and investment in knowledge, but we've talked mostly more in a short run context here. But then I just got a couple of slides for a brief video now at the end to look about the long run trends. So inequality fell a lot in the richest countries between 1900 and 1980. Okay, so there was actually huge inequality in countries like the UK and I guess Sweden, I don't know, and the US in 1900. And that actually fell pretty steadily throughout most of the 20th century. You could look at like Piketty talks about this a lot, for instance. Why was that? Well, I'm not sure I want to go into that. That would be a bit of a digression. But things turned around in most of the rich countries after about 1980. Why was that? So inequality's been going up ever since then. Pretty steeply in some countries, not quite as steeply in others like Sweden, but still increasing. Why is that? Well, it's basically like Thatcher, Reagan, the economic doctrines that they brought in about more free markets, less government intervention, lower taxes, that has triggered increases in inequality. And that is indisputable. At the same time, it's highly debatable whether it's given any benefits in terms of higher consumption growth. Okay. So how could we turn this around? Well, we basically need to roll that back. Okay. We need, for instance, going back to high top rates of tax on the very high earners that we see, for instance, still they've kept in Denmark, which has kept the lid on inequality. And it's not just about a high top rate of tax. The government takes a lot of the income, a big proportion of the income from the highest earners. So that has a direct effect on inequality. It also has an indirect effect because it dampens the incentives for firms to pay high wages, exceptionally high wages, to a few people in the firm, like the leaders, because it doesn't make sense to do that if the government takes most of it anyway. So it has a sort of double effect, at least. And then, of course, you also, to the extent you provide better public services and so on, that also reduces inequality because those who benefit from those services are often those on lower incomes. Okay, so that's a little bit of economic sustainability and inequality. How do we best reduce inequality at the global level? Well, wow. Yeah, super tricky question. I'm not going to go into it in depth. Some of the things that are relevant are trade. So economists will often argue that when countries open up to trade, so we're thinking now there's like poor countries and rich countries. How can we help the poor countries grow? Economists will often argue that it's a huge problem if you're like closed to trade. Low-income countries, they need to open up to trade. That allows the capital investment and new technologies to establish themselves, or new technologies with the help of capital investment to establish themselves in the poorer countries or low-income countries, and that can start the growth process or help the growth process. Okay. Another one is migration. Yeah. So, and that can help in multiple ways. So people just leaving the country, well, that's good for those people, but bad for the people left behind, except to the extent that the migrants send income back to their home country. And those income flows are huge, right? They're bigger than the flows of foreign aid. And foreign aid is also a possible answer, right? That the rich countries send more aid to the poor countries. Okay, highly complex question. No simple answers. I don't have any simple answers for you, I'm afraid. Okay, so that's a brief, very brief and not very satisfactory few words on long run inequality, both within countries and globally. And that's the end of the inequality theme, and then we're on to unemployment.